Good morning. Hello, good morning. Okay, all right. If I say it really loud, they'll hear it in the foyer. Good morning. On this beautiful Sunday morning, we gather together in this spiritual community, in this circle, and whether we're here in this room or we're joining us through the week online, we are gathered here as community, and we welcome and recognize that this is a place for our spiritual exploration, regardless of where we are on that path, whether we're newbies to the spiritual path or whether we've been walking this journey for a long time, whether we are here for the first time or hold this spot week in and week out. We're welcome and we're part of this community, and we're grateful for that. We open ourselves in this time to a spirit of compassion and depth that each of us knows and that each of us requires and that each of us wants a little bit more of in our lives. That spirit of compassion and depth, to know that we're each valued and we've got a valuable contribution to make to our world. No matter who we are welcome and safe to explore honestly here. And as we gather, we do so in that same spirit of great gratitude that we're here in this place at this time with each other. We're here in a specific place on this land of the Cree people of Treaty 6, and for that we're grateful too. We're here in this place where we honor what's come before us. We look around and we recognize and value the present. And we live in this future hope. This hope that today will be better than yesterday because we will work to make it so. That we will work toward a spirit of reconciliation, toward a life of partnership, toward a place where our spirits and our very centers call us to our highest humanity. And so let's celebrate that as we're here today. That even in the midst of joy or sorrow, whatever we happen to be enduring in life, whatever we happen to be celebrating, that we can do it together, and that we can celebrate that life is for sharing. And in this community, we can do that. Let's open ourselves to the spirit of this place and this time, and in the spirit of song. As we light this candle, we recognize that the light shines. In a time and in a world where darkness can seem to show its face, the light shines. It shines in each of us. It shines in our responses. It shines in how we live. May the light remind us of the strength and pervasiveness of our significance, the significance of our relationships, and the significance of the love that we live. As we light this candle, we recognize its connection for us to all that has come before and all that will come after, and that we seek spiritual wisdom and light in every step. Let's join our voices together as we share words of invitation this morning. If your response to my phrases could be the words before you, nothing and nobody stands alone. An underlying harmony and a delicate equilibrium built on the value of all binds together past and present. No one is above the universal law of togetherness. Nothing and nobody stands alone. Life dies and becomes something new. My life is inextricably linked to yours, and our common survival is tied to even the trees and the insects. Nothing and nobody stands alone. This is the beginning of wisdom, better than wealth, more valuable than possessions. Awareness of it will change us forever. Nothing and nobody stands alone. On this morning, may we not close ourselves to the voices of the winds and waves, the insights of the rocks and plants. May we know that we cannot by ourselves encompass eternity. Nothing and nobody stands alone. And may we always be open to wonder, to beauty, to mystery, and know that no matter who we are, nothing and nobody stands alone. I would like to welcome anyone who'd like to come to the carpet for a story to make their way over here. Hi, Liam. I want to read a story. In a book called Tales from Aesop. Aesop's fables have been around for a long, long time, longer than even me. It's called The Dog and His Reflection. And I don't have a lot of pictures up here, but I've got them here. And it's a very short story. It's only 3 pages long. I know. It's a ripoff. One day, a dog stole a lamb chop from his master's table. It looks pretty juicy, licking his lips. He got it off over, and there he goes out the door. He rushes out of the house with it before anyone could stop him, and never stopped running until he reached the woods. As he carried the chop over a bridge, the dog looked down into the stream. There he saw his own reflection in the clear water. There he can see his reflection. But he thought he was looking at another dog with another, bigger-looking lamb chop. So being greedy, he wanted to have that one too. The dog let out a large growl, and he opened his mouth to grab the other dog's lamb chop. Alas, as soon as he opened his mouth, his own lamb chop dropped into the water and sank out of sight. Instead of having 2 lamb chops, the greedy dog had nothing. Nothing. Maybe he could go get it? Maybe. I bet that lamb chop sunk to the bottom. I don't know. Depends how big the lamb chop was. Does meat float? That's another experiment we'll have to do one day. Little tiny story, but I brought a mirror. Hey, who's that? Okay, great. Sit down. We can all see. Okay. Now, I have a weird question for you. When you look in this mirror, do you see yourself? Mm-hmm. Okay. So, just down on your bum so everyone can see. Perfect. You see yourself. So now, how do you know which one is real? Eleanor, you're having a thought. What do you think? By feeling. So you can kind of feel that you're real. Can you feel that one? Does it feel soft like you? No, it doesn't. Sure, you can do that too. See, gently. You were ready to punch earlier, so I didn't want you to punch the mirror because this isn't Taekwondo class. Okay, so right. Perfect. So it's tricky because you can touch that and you know it's real. But if you're just looking, you can tell just kind of by knowing that you are real. This one, maybe not. Has anyone ever been in a house of mirrors, like a room where there's tons of mirrors and you have to kind of go through it like a maze? Yeah, you have. Yeah. Yeah, you go through and you try to make your way out, and it's really confusing sometimes, right? I've bumped my nose a few times. in a fun house because I walked into a mirror. Mirrors are tricks. It's a trick, right? I mean, this looks like you, but it's not you.
Because when we tap the glass, we can't even go through.
You cannot go through there.
Yeah, it's here.
This story about this dog that saw its reflection in the stream, he thought that the other dog had a bigger bone, right? The dog didn't know that this wasn't real. So he tried to grab it, and his bone fell out of his mouth. So now instead of having two, he had how many? None. Zero. So I wonder why we would tell this story. Maybe we tell it because if we've got a lamb chop, maybe we should be happy that we have a lamb chop.
Or we didn't know that when we were looking into a stream and we had something in our hand and we didn't know that we thought it was someone else.
Yes.
Like they cut off their meat and they wanted the big.
It could happen to you too. You could look and say, hey, I want that bigger something.
Like milk.
Yeah, a bigger glass of milk. Perfect. I think that this story teaches us that we can be grateful and thankful for the things that we have. That if we try to reach for bigger things all the time, if we try to reach for better things, if we always want it to be bigger and better, if we're always looking at something else and saying, you know what, someone else has something that's better than mine, I want that too. Or if we look and say, oh, someone else has more money than me, I want that too. Or we say, someone else is smarter or stronger or whatever, someone's better than me, I want to be like that too. If we are always doing that, if we're always looking out and wanting something more, we won't be very happy. And I think this story talks about being grateful for all the wonderful things that we have and all the wonderful people that we are. That we don't have to look outside or even to other people to be happy. And I think we could learn from the dog that we'll be happier, we'll get along with others, we'll be grateful for all that we have. So there's a reason this story is so old, because it has a lot to teach us, that we can make sure that we're not quite like that dog that growls for the bigger thing and then loses what we have. Let's be grateful for what we have. So today is a lovely day because it's our last day of Kids Spirit until summertime, which is both sad but also exciting, because that means that next week, if we come on Sunday, we get to meet outside and have our outdoor gathering and our picnic together. I'm reading today from a book entitled Everyday Psalms by James Taylor. This is his rendition of Psalm 133. How good it would feel to have the human family gathered together for a sumptuous feast. Imagine being there to rejoice in the rich meal of fruit and tree and vine. Apples and oranges, grapes and cherries yield their joyous juices to our lusting mouths. Drops of surplus pleasure trickle down our chins. We dab them unself-consciously with rumpled napkins. Such a gathering refreshes like a sweet morning in the mountains, like a prairie sky polished bright by gentle breezes. Surely, this is the intention written into the whole of the natural world. This is an ancient Hebrew song captured in poetry. May we find wisdom for our living. Our next reading is an excerpt from a novel entitled The Elegance of the Hedgehog by Muriel Barbary. Comes from a chapter entitled Profound Thought Number 9. This is a story of a girl who lives in an apartment building in Paris and meets all of the older residents of the apartment building and learns something about life from each of them. I was in the elevator with Monsieur Ozu. He said to me straight out, "I'm very intrigued by our concierge, Madame Michel. I'd like your opinion." I know plenty of people who would try to worm the information out of me, acting all innocent, but he was up front. "I suspect," he said, "that she's not what we think." I've had my own suspicions on the matter for a while now, too. From a distance, she's a real concierge. Close up, there's something weird going on. Colombe hates her, Colombe is her sister, hates her and thinks she's the dregs of humanity. Colombe, in any case, thinks that anyone who doesn't meet her cultural standard is the dregs of humanity, and for Colombe, the cultural standard is social power and shirts from Agnès Bay. As for Madame Michel, how can we tell? She radiates intelligence. And yet she really makes an effort. Like, you can tell she's doing everything she possibly can to act like a concierge and come across as stupid. But I've been watching her. When she would talk with Jean Arthens, or when she talks to Neptune when Diane has her back turned, or when she looks at the ladies in the building who walk right by her without saying hello, Madame Michel has the elegance of the hedgehog. On the outside, she's covered in quills. A real fortress, but my gut feeling is that on the inside, she has the same simple refinement as the hedgehog. A deceptively indolent little creature, fiercely solitary and terribly elegant. Well, having said that, I admit it, I'm not a clairvoyant. If nothing out of the ordinary has happened, I'd still be seeing the same thing everyone else sees, a concierge who most of the time is grumpy. But something did happen not long ago, and it's odd that Monsieur Ozu's question came along just when it did. 2 weeks ago, Antoine Pallière knocked over Madame Michel's shopping bag just as she was opening her door. Beets, noodles, bouillon cubes, and soap all fell out, and as I walked past, I glimpsed a book amidst all the things on the ground. I say glimpsed because Madame Michel rushed over to pick everything up, looking angrily at Antoine, who was obviously not inclined to lift even a little finger. But she also looked worried. He didn't notice, but I had all the time I needed to figure out what the book in Madame Michel's shopping bag was, or rather, what kind of book. Because there have been loads of the same type on my sister Colombe's desk since she enrolled in philosophy. It was a book from a publisher called Vrin, ultra specialized in philosophy books for university. Now, what is a concierge doing with a Vrin book in her shopping bag? Is the question that, unlike Antoine Pallière, I asked myself. I think you're right, I said to Monsieur Ozu, and we immediately progressed from being neighbors to being something more, conspirators. We exchanged our impressions of Madame Michel, and Monsieur Ozu said he was willing to bet that she was a clandestine erudite princess. And we said goodbye with a promise to investigate further. So here is my profound thought for the day. This is the first time I've met someone who seeks out people and who sees beyond. That may seem trivial, but I think it's profound all the same. We never look beyond our assumptions. And what's worse, we've given up trying to meet others. We just meet ourselves. We don't recognize each other because other people have become our permanent mirrors. If we actually realized this, if we were to become aware of the fact that we were only ever looking at ourselves in the other person, that we are alone in the wilderness, we would go crazy. When my mother offers macaroons from Chez Lauderay to Madame de Broglie, she is telling herself her own life story and just nibbling at her own flavor. When Papa drinks his coffee and reads his paper, he's contemplating his own reflection in the mirror as if practicing the QA method or something. When Colombe talks about Marianne's lectures, she's ranting about her own reflection. And when people walk by the concierge, all they see is a void because she's not from their world. As for me, I implore fate to give me the chance to see beyond myself and truly meet someone. These are words of a French novelist and philosopher. I find wisdom far more. After the tragic news of the bombing in Manchester, it is helpful for me to acknowledge that it's impossible to understand. That with all the news pundits and all the commentators and all the politicians expressing grief and explanation, there is no one who really understands. I, for one, don't understand the grief of those who've lost a loved one murdered. I can't comprehend the madness of the grief and the chaos that will be life in the aftermath of this level of tragedy for a family, for a city. I don't understand the inhuman and violent insanity of the bomber. Can any of us understand the capacity of a person to not feel anything for the people around him as he endeavors to destroy them? Or to understand the self-loathing or the personal and religious delusion that masks a barbarism that would have him destroy himself? A writer this week penned the following words on his blog. Terror is so called perhaps in part because it cannot ever be stopped. We know this, don't we? We know we can't stop people turning cars, planes, and public spaces into accessories to murder. There can never be enough metal detectors or screening procedures. There can never be enough checks or bans or vengeful responses. There will always be people in the world that find a flag under which to express unfathomable cruelty. I don't understand this because there are too many things I love to abandon my life to hatred, starting with my girlfriend and daughter, all the way to places I've been and unthinkingly enjoyed, like Manchester. What depths must be inhabited to inflict such suffering? Thank God I can't imagine it. I have a sense that hatred comes from hatred and love comes from love. Perhaps there is a simple duty for those of us not directly affected to know that we can't hate our way out of this, to be loving and to be strong. At times like this, to be loving and kind and strong takes incredible strength. That's the end of the quote. And I guess because we can never say it often enough, the essence of today's reflection is about just that, the small ways we can take on one of the very few responses we can have to world events like these. And that is to find ways to be loving, kind, and strong. We quite honestly take our peaceful and genuine connection with one another for granted. I know I do. I see some of you once or twice a week and forget at times that we're connected in ways that are important. How often do I do that with my family and arrive home or leave the house and forget just how important my genuine, loving connection is to these people in my life? And why wouldn't we take it for granted? Because we get busy. All of us do. And we don't often have events like what happened in Manchester to invade our lives to remind us of just how important these connections and relationships are. These connections not just between me and my loved ones or you and yours, but between perhaps us and total strangers. Between me and those I brush past every day that we don't know, that need just maybe some small sign, some small human interaction from keeping going over the edge. I don't know if it's possible that we can fully understand what impact our actions can ever have on another. We don't see it until after the fact sometimes, if at all. Or regretfully, We don't notice it and see it until those interactions are no longer possible. The actions that speak volumes to each other, we all know what those are. Sometimes they're big things. They're the befriending, they're the standing beside, they're being present. And sometimes they're the little things. They're the little questions we ask of someone, or the little gift we give, or the kindness we share, or the thought we share. And equally on the other side of the coin, from the big things of grudges and long-lived anger to the small things of unthinking verbal explosions that come out of our mouths, or hastily written emails, or walking past each other and only seeing the void, as Barbary puts it. These are the actions that speak volumes to another, and they're the ways in which we so often give each other the impression of the kind of world we want. I'm still processing something that happened yesterday in the Superstore parking lot for me. And it was a total utter fail. So you know how sometimes when the people parking in the parking lot just aren't lining up in the lines, and the only spot you have is the one that you know is over the line, but it's where the other cars are? So then, of course, when you come out, everyone is perfect except you. And the woman beside me was waiting so that she could get into her car. And I felt terrible. I felt rotten, because I know what that's like. You know, I'm sure she was cursing whoever this guy was that parked like an idiot. And it's funny, we try our best, don't we? We try our best. I apologized. I related to her. I said, "Oh, I know how that feels. I'm so sorry that it ended up being me that was left like a jerk like this in the parking lot, and I'm so sorry." And she'd have none of it. None of it. She wanted none of it. And I stewed all the way home thinking, what could I have done to soften this? Anyway, I've been that angry too when I don't want anyone to talk to me because I'm too busy being angry. But it reminded me of what Paloma, the main young girl in our novel, speaks about being in every interaction simply the mirror we're holding up to our own face. This 12-year-old girl, Paloma, from the imagination of Muriel Barbary, I think her words speak wisdom to us who pass by countless people every day, who have little interactions, both frustrating and pleasant, in this concrete jungle of ours. And these are words for us all who talk a great talk, who say in our weekly times that we love, that we care, that we connect, and we do, and for that we celebrate. But oh, how many places slip by. How many places have relationships that get overlooked, where all we see is the concierge, or the cashier, or the neighbor, or the receptionist, or the cranky woman in the parking lot, or the mechanic, and not even a glimmer of the possibility not even a consideration of the realness of their humanity, because we pass by, because we have too many relationships to deal with already, because it's difficult to acknowledge the rest of humanity when there's so much of it. I read recently that an article that says, based on research, the average person only really wants or can handle 4 to 5 good close friends at any time. And those 4 or 5 change throughout your life. They they change, but that there's this kind of built-in fence, this built-in barrier when we get to in our psyches that tell us we have enough friends, we can't deal with any more right now. To really befriend, probably, I mean, it's logical, I think, in some ways. To befriend someone really, I mean, not just an acquaintance, but to have and call them a friend takes time and energy. And I can see that we probably only have so much of that, right? That's a limited supply in our lives, time and energy. But so not everyone can be a close friend. To acknowledge the humanity of another doesn't necessarily, though, necessitate a weekly dinner invitation. We may only be able to have 3, 4, 5, 6. I mean, you know, there's standard deviation, but close friends. But human value and kindness is simpler than that. To go back to the story, to glimpse somebody's fallen groceries and learn something new about them, perhaps a passing glimpse of humanity, of the sacred in that moment, to recognize something we didn't know before, or to be curious enough to go there to ask. Mr. Ozu amazes the young Paloma because he can see beyond assumptions, not giving up trying to meet others by observing from a distance, categorizing them and putting them in a box we've created for them, and moving on to forget. I've done, a little while ago, I did a little social experiment in my house. My family wouldn't appreciate it being called that, but it's based on something else I read. I should stop reading, and it would cause my family less harm, probably. But it's in the area of sports and psychology, and the study went something like this. If those who are not that interested in a particular sport, this happens in the community that is families, because, you know, sometimes some people like a sport and other people don't, and then there's a fight over, are you watching that thing again? And, you know, maybe that was self-revelatory, I don't know. I got sidetracked there. If there are those who are not that interested in a particular sport, if they learn something fairly personal about one of the players of that sport, particularly if that's, you know, a home team, if that's something that they're exposed to regularly, then there's a marked increase in interest in that sport in general and investment in the success of the team. In other words, they become fans. So, a few years ago, I quietly happened to just mention that the player who was currently on the TV screen, that his wife was at home very close to delivery of their first child. Because we wanted to know the progress of that baby, we started watching every game. Oh, I should say, they started watching every game. Because why? Is there news? Is that player playing? If not, why? Is something happening? Maybe the baby's coming. And suddenly that player became a favorite player because the family connected with him on a level that wasn't just the sport, wasn't just statistics, wasn't just another guy on the screen that looks like all the others, but one that connected because they knew something personal, something human about him. And isn't that the way of our lives? A tiny slice of humanity makes the difference between this void, this shadow, this someone playing a role, to something else. And that's just a very stupid sports example, but this is the way it is in our lives. There's a connection that can exist in almost any interaction, but it requires something of us. It requires going beyond the mirror that we're holding up, in which we play out whatever's going on for us. And what Paloma is talking about in this novel is seeing past ourselves so that we can truly see someone else. And we're the ones who can get in the way of that. We set up the boxes into which we put the people we see. Because let's be honest, there are boxes. They aren't theirs. And yet we move along in our days discounting, ignoring, or malfocused because it's easier and less time-consuming to think that those people came already boxed. The concierge box, the mechanic box, the minister box, and with nice labels on them to boot so that we don't have to work too hard, and it makes it easier to turn off our curiosity. That story that we read on the carpet this morning, the dog who looks at his reflection and sees a dog with a bigger bone. Beyond its surface meaning that cautions against greed, the beauty of this fable is in its reminder to its readers of the risk of trusting the first glimpse of what we see. In our mirror reflecting Is our mirror reflecting a true image of what is what? Is the one in which we evaluate in the fitting room the same one as when we get the clothes home? Dang it, I wish. The funhouse mirrors show us what they want us to see, a short fat blob or a tall skinny string or something curvy and wacky. It's hard to check in the back of a spoon, your reflection, because it has you on your head. So the question is, how will we learn to see beyond our mirrors and into the real hearts and eyes and minds and lives? Even when it's difficult, I don't think I could answer that question with my interaction in a parking lot yesterday. But we're better off for having asked the question. Will we take the time to glimpse, to connect? The courage to ask about the book you glimpse in their bag, or what they're reading on the bus, or to want even 3 minutes to create a connection. How do we do it? Where will we do it? How will we do it? Those are the things I guess we have to figure out. But in light of tragedy and in light of those who act with incomprehensible violence, I have to think that connections with honest and heartfelt love and kindness could and will continue to make a difference. As the blogger shared in what I read earlier, if hate begets hate and love begets love, then the world needs a lot more love. And that's where we all step in. When we walk the spiritual journey that we walk, we're also seeking to shed our less than human skins. We want fully human skins on. We want to walk more in the light of awareness and attentiveness. We want to be the best, the highest valued humans we can be, to become and to connect with our humanity as best we can. And it's one of those small ways that love and kindness will take back this crazy world and will maybe make it understandable. And love is one of those investments that you don't see the returns right away. Sometimes you do, and that's fantastic. But it might be an investment that goes beyond our years. The love and kindness that will bring hope to situations that tempt us to close down, or to be defensive, or to hold up the mirror again to deal with our own stuff. And I want to do the exact opposite. I want to open up. So I think our prayer today could be like Paloma's prayer. May we continue to shatter superficiality and take the chance to see beyond ourselves and to really meet someone. This week and whenever we can, may we put the love into the world that needs to be there, and may we work to make it so at every turn in so many ways. Amen. Let's join our voices together in a prayer that we can share to lift our intentions aloud. As we pray, we recognize that we are a unique we today. And under this mystery, there is a deep, abiding sense of oneness. It calls us to see each other as works of art. It calls us to challenge and strengthen each other. It calls us to see beyond the obvious and toward the underlying sacredness. It manifests itself in each act of compassion. As we live into this week, may we be filled with an awareness of the value and connection of each one to ourselves. And may it spill over our interactions, spill into our work, spill into our play. And may this unity and connection soak into and through the whole of our living. As people ever seeking light, we pray. Amen. And so we go into this week with the spirit of love and life and light that are ours to give. They are our gifts to each other and to the world. May our sense of connection and love that we offer be transforming for us and for all we're around. around us. Beauty is within us. Beauty.